Welcome back to our live coverage of John Paul II in the Holy Land, a historic papal Jubilee pilgrimage. I'm Raymond Arroyo, joined on set by Father Kevin Treston and Father Francis Mary Stone of the Franciscan Missionaries of the Eternal Word. We now have live footage coming in, the papal motorcade making its way to Hechal Shlomo. This is the site of today's meeting with the two Israeli rabbis. They will meet with John Paul II today. Various Jewish leaders, rabbis assembled in this site, at this site, and we're awaiting the arrival of John Paul II. He will meet today with the Sephardic rabbi, Eliahud Bashi Doran, and the Ashkenazi chief rabbi Yisrael Mir Rao. They will have an address by the Pope, and they've already welcomed him, by the way, in a formal address, which I will excerpt now. The chief rabbinate of Israel issued this statement prior to the Pope's arrival. They said, "We welcome one who saw fit to express remorse in the name of the Catholic Church for the terrible deeds committed against the Jewish people during the course of the past 2,000 years, and even appointed a commission for requesting forgiveness from the Jewish nation with regard to the Holocaust." So they are embracing this visit by John Paul II, and indeed you see by the turnout that this is a most anticipated event, a continuation really of the Jewish-Catholic dialogue spearheaded by John Paul II. And today we will be considering that theme as the Pope will meet with the President of Israel, President Weizmann. He will also go, of course, one of the final events of the day, he will go to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial here in the Holy Land. He'll be met there by Ehud Barak, the Prime Minister of Israel. So all of this is ahead. And then in the late afternoon, he will oversee an interreligious meeting between Jews and Muslims. So today is sort of the Christian-Jewish dialogue day, if you will. He's focusing on Christian-Jewish relations. We just saw the Mass from the upper room, which was the first live event today, and then the rear there of the yesterday's private visit to the Grotto of the Nativity, a moving and beautiful moment. I do want to talk briefly. When the Pope arrived, he had this to say: "Christians and Jews together must make courageous efforts to remove all forms of prejudice. We must strive always and everywhere to present the true face of the Jews and of Judaism, as likewise of Christians and of Christianity." And this is really a growing relationship, isn't it, Father, over the last 21 years since John Paul II has sat on the throne?
I would think so, and his knowledge of the Jewish people growing up in Poland, in the area which has at that time a large Jewish population, which we know of, and his actual love for the individuals. His neighbors were Jewish neighbors, and we know from text that they got along quite well in those days, and he will meet some of those people later today. But our Holy Father does want to see that the great fear of some people and prejudice of the past, that there's fear of, well, you must convert to the faith and you must be this way. Our Holy Father is saying, we know there are differences, there are theological, a great rift, but yet we share some things in common. Mm-hmm. So we are not going to say, well, we will concede that or you concede this. It's a matter of dialogue, and that's where it begins. And it's a long process of going down the road. We spoke of Roman Catholic, Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, and other dialogue, Muslim dialogues. But the main thing I've noticed recently is that some of the peoples in the old city and in the new city of Jerusalem, they're not really enthused as we are. We're enthused about our Holy Father's visit, but they're more like, well, what he's going to offer us? Well, why should he have to offer anything? He's offering the Word. He's offering himself, as Jesus did. He's offering the Word of life. And this is for all faiths to come to know and to live under the goodness of the Creator. and the one who sanctifies us. And certainly our Jewish brothers and sisters would acknowledge that in their faith they also praise the Creator as we do. So it's a matter of dialogue, of there are differences, there will always be differences, but at least to live at peace and to respect our faith, respect our need for the holy places to be open, respect for the Christians who are there.
Father Francis, you want to add anything about this
I like the
relationship?
term that I've heard, a reciprocal friendship. Our Holy Father had said on the retreat, the close of a retreat that he made prior to making this pilgrimage, he said the Bishop of Rome is going to Israel as a friend of the Jewish people. He's going as a friend, but I think Father Kevin hit it as well, where there's a sense of an overriding pall or ignorance that affects, I think, both the Jewish people and ourselves when it comes to entering into authentic dialogue with each other.
Why do you think that is? Where does that ignorance stem from?
Well, I think a lot of it is just the general secularism that's affected the whole planet. It seems as though the world has kind of pushed itself in at the expense of people in all faiths knowing their faith. There's really a poverty of knowledge of the faith, and there certainly is that when it comes to, again, ourselves as Christian Catholics knowing the Jewish people or the Muslim faith itself. And I remember reading not too long ago an article where a university professor at a leading Jewish institution had said that she knew very little about the Christian faith, and in particular the Catholic faith. It was a great mystery to her, many things in the dialogue that was happening.
Our first sighting of John Paul II, his Pope-mobile, pulling up here at Hechal Shlomo. This is the site of the chief rabbinate of Israel. Now we're getting an aerial view of the region, of the city, and seem to have lost contact with that camera directly before the Pope's vehicle there. But we will await reestablishment with that portion of the feed. Father, you were talking about this growing relationship, and honestly, this has been an evolution. We are seeing an evolution of Catholic doctrine in this area, are we not?
Well, I think it's the beauty of it, as we have seen with the Pope's visit, it always was there. This is the seedbed of Christianity, you know? And the first apostles were Jewish men, Jewish fishermen, and Jewish tax collectors, and Jesus himself of the Jewish nation. And so we see from there that as our Lord preached and taught, and we see the institution day of the Eucharist and the Cenacle, yes, our Lord was fulfilling what was to be this reconciliation between the Father and ourselves, and he came his life and death on the cross. So I think that, yes, we have a lot to offer in the sense of the beauty of the Word, the beauty of our tradition in the Holy Land, in the area here, in what we have in Israel today. So we're sort of going back. We're going back to our roots.
And it is the 1965 teaching, Nostre Aetate, really clarified Catholic teaching regarding the Jewish people, correct? What did that declaration by the Second Vatican Council say, in fact?
Well, basically, that we respect people of other faiths outside the Christian religion, people, the Islamic people, and also the Jewish people. Also, in reference to the Jewish people, that the Catholic Church does not condone any type of anti-Semitism, either in the past or in the present.
John Paul II now entering Hechal Shlomo to meet the two chief rabbis of Israel. This, of course, a familiar sight to those who have watched the Pope over recent years. In 1986, he went to the synagogue in Rome, made a speech there at the synagogue, the first time in history that a Roman pontiff has made such a journey to the synagogue. At that time, he said, the Jewish religion is not extrinsic to us, but in a certain sense, it is intrinsic to our own religion. With Judaism, therefore, we have a relationship which we do not have with any other religion. You are our dear, beloved brothers, and in a certain way, it could be said, you are our elder brothers. And of course, we've heard that repeated so many times regarding the Jewish people since then.
Yeah, I think as well, Raymond, that it's pointing back again to the fact that we're in the Great Jubilee year. And the Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, is calling for a real deepening of the bonds that unite us. And I think it was in Ut Unum Sint, that they may all be one, a recent document that our Holy Father published and wrote, that he speaks of things like language that we use when we refer to each other that is important, that we have to move away perhaps from some language that lends itself to misunderstandings and that can kind of heighten differences rather than really kind of meld into the things that bond us and unite us. I think of, for instance, even with our Christian brothers and sisters of the separated faith, he says, we don't need to say the separated faith. He says there are Christian brothers and sisters. There's certain kind of things that just by saying them kind of
reinforce the division.
Exactly. And he's, again, it's pointing to a conversion, a purification of the way we speak, of our memories, and a learning that has to happen. And these are acts of the will that must take place. And he's saying that in this, the Great Jubilee year, this is the time of reconciliation, of peace, of conversion.
We should mention the difference between the Ashkenazi. What are the Ashkenazi, and why are they separate from the Sephardic?
It's a matter of culture and tradition. The Ashkenazi people of Judaism would be in Europe, as we know, that when Titus basically kicked out the Jews from Jerusalem and from Bethlehem at that time, they had to go somewhere. So many of them would migrate through Asia Minor all the way what would become today modern Europe. And so the Jewish people of Poland, Ukraine, Germany, Italy, these are the Ashkenazi, and so they have different traditions and different ways of practicing Judaism, but they're united under the one banner of Judaism. And the Sephardics are those Jews from Spain.
I see. And those refer to the two rabbis that the Pope will meet today, the two separate people in this Holy Land. We should mention that Rabbi Lau, the Ashkenazi rabbi, has asked the Pope to make a public apology today when he visits Yad Vashem. Lau is himself a Holocaust survivor and has asked the Pope to make a public apology against Pius XII and his supposed silence on the fate of the Jews during the Holocaust. A lot of misunderstanding here swirling around Pius XII's role during the war, what he did, and perhaps as we go on throughout the day we can help clarify that a little bit.
I think so.
From Manchester, but now in Far Royal serving. Manchester, in England. In England. ממתי הפרוכת הזאת? It's an old couple of an ark, Torah's called ark. 400 years. 400. אז זה זכורי מכבל.
The chief rabbi is now taking the Pope around the synagogue here, and we'll listen in for as much as we can here.
Very important moment. The brother was here in Tel Aviv, a professor of gynecology, Roberto Toa. כנס. תבוא רגע עכשיו בכניסה הזאת.
Following behind His Holiness, they're allowing the Pope to go and enter first. Now we are in a separate room. All the walls have been covered in this room with white draperies. Photos are now being taken, but the rabbis are on either side of His Holiness.
Please be seated.
And now they're being seated. Because now the cameras are being expelled from the room, and this will be a private conversation between the Pope and the rabbis. Martin Navarro-Valls, they are coming outside the door, making sure the rest of the press is out of the room. This is truly a private meeting. It is just the two rabbis and His Holiness. And as we said earlier, this is part of a continuing conversation. Even the attendants to the rabbis are being thrown out of the room. This is truly a personal, private meeting. The room is just off, the room where the rabbis are meeting with the Pope is just off the meeting hall where several guests are seated, all the cardinals and many rabbis awaiting a
Welcome to Hechal Shlomo. Welcome to Jerusalem. Welcome to Israel. I will try to speak as softly as I can so that the chief rabbis and His Holiness can conduct their discussion in quiet. We have several minutes, 15 minutes, in which the spiritual leaders will be speaking together. And we thought that we could utilize this opportunity when we have the spiritual leaders of two great monotheistic faiths with us here together to say a few words perhaps and to mingle and exchange opinions and views. But beforehand, I would like to present the Director General of the Chief Rabbinate, and perhaps Harav Shar Yeshuv, the Chief Ashkenazi Rabbi of Haifa, will introduce the distinguished rabbis we have with here, and we can have an opportunity for perhaps an informal discussion and informal exchange of opinions. And once, of course, the meeting is over, we will escort the delegation outside to the visit with the President. Harav Shar Yeshuv, please.
Your Excellency, honored guests, here are gathered some old friends, some new friends, and a representative delegation of the rabbinate of the Israeli different cities, members of the Chief Rabbinate Council. I'll mention only a few: Chief Rabbi of Jerusalem, Rabbi Mashash, Chief Rabbi of Haifa, my colleague Rav Shlush, Chief Rabbi of Givatayim, Rabbi Glicksberg, and member of the Chief Rabbinate Council, Rabbi Ralbag, members of the Supreme Rabbinic Court, Rabbi Daichovsky and Rabbi Nadav, and all the other rabbis that came from different parts of the country. For sake of time, they'll excuse me not mentioning their names, but we have the rabbis from the Golan Heights, from Ramat Gan, from the area of Tel Aviv, and even Metula, as far north as Metula, which is on the Lebanese border, and from different parts of the country, and they all made the effort to come here to welcome you and be in this historic moment of the visit of our distinguished guest to the Chief Rabbinate and to the Chief Rabbis, to Hechal Shlomo. I would just like to say that we indeed hope that this will be a sign of deep commitment of peace and understanding between peoples, and between all those who believe in one God and pray for justice and peace that will reign in Israel and in the Near East and the world from now forever on. If I would like to repeat, Cardinal Cassidy will remember that one of the meetings we had, conferences, I said that we all have our own truth, but we all believe that the name of God is peace. And our problem, to find a solution to have peace and truth go together, with the help of God, will succeed. Thank you very much. May God bless your ways. Rav Mashash in French.
We are looking in on a meeting happening, a second meeting actually happening while the Pope conducts a private meeting with the two chief Israeli rabbis. They are just off the floor. We're seeing a delegation of Jewish rabbis from throughout the region, and across the aisle from them, the Catholic and Eastern Catholic delegation. Very interesting dialogue we're listening in on here. We just had several rabbis introduced. And this is, as we said earlier, continuing conversation, one near the heart of John Paul II. We have to remember this Pope not only was the first Pope to go to the Roman synagogue to address the Roman Jewish community, but he has also been to Auschwitz. He has been instrumental in efforts to commemorate Holocaust victims. Last year, rather in 1997, he issued a statement entitled "We Remember, a Reflection on the Shoah." It was the Holy See's Commission for Religious Relations with the Jews which released the document, and it went through went about the business of pointing out that there were some Christians who didn't do enough during the Holocaust and should have done more. Of course, an apology in recent days by the Pope, a public apology to God, we should mention, for the omissions of Church's members. And here's Cardinal Cassidy.
On behalf of all the delegation that has come today with Pope John Paul II, I wish to thank you for the welcome that you've given us, for welcoming us here into a place which already I've been warmly welcomed to in the past. But today is a very special day for us to be here. We look forward to the future relationship that we wish to build upon the meeting today. We have already been working for many years to build a new relationship built on mutual trust, on greater understanding, and on a partnership together between the two great religions that are represented here today. The delegation that comes with Pope John Paul II consists of the Secretary of State, Cardinal Sodano, of Cardinal Etchegaray, who is the Cardinal in charge of the celebrations of this Jubilee year, Cardinal Silvestrini, who represents the Oriental Catholic Church's dicastery in Rome, His Excellency Monsignor Ray, who is the substitute in the Secretariat of State, and the other members of the delegation are there. And of course, the Patriarch, whom you know so well, Patriarch Shabbat, here of Jerusalem, is part of our delegation during these days. We have been very reassured by the welcome that we have received. We are most grateful for the possibility that we have of being with you for a few moments today, and we look forward, as I said, to the future relationship that we hope to build upon this meeting. Thank you.
I'd like to invite my colleague, Chief Rabbi of Haifa, Rabbi Shlomo Shlush, a few words in French.
Très chers amis le grand rabbin, soyez les bienvenus.
This entire visit by John Paul II also underscores the Church's ever-growing closeness to the Jewish people and recognition, really, of the State of Israel.
Du pape
In 1965, as we mentioned earlier, Nostra Aetate was the declaration of the Second Vatican Council, which essentially absolved the Jews as a people of any guilt related to the murder of Jesus. Perhaps one of you would like to explain what that means essentially now.
le bien de
Father.
nos enfants
Sorry.
et
Nostra Aetate, when it
vous dit soyez
said that it was absolving the Jewish people essentially of the murder of Jesus, what does that mean?
Well, again, it's a temporality. The people in the hierarchy at that time under the Romans, that was the people of that time. That was their decision at that time. People will say, well, the Romans killed Jesus, and the Jewish people would not do it. But there was some complications in those days. There was some jealousy and envy, and so there was some difficulties. But that doesn't mean for all time. We do not hold this against Jewish people for all time. It was at that time.
Right, so it doesn't perpetuate through, guilt does not perpetuate through through the centuries.
And nor to keep an anti-Semitism against the Jews of today or the Jews of the 19th or 17th or 18th century because of something that happened 2,000 years ago. Remember, too, that Jesus died for our sins. That we have some responsibility also, that he died for the sins of all people of all time, and that was the great sacrifice on the cross.
This is Cardinal Etchegaray of the Jubilee Committee. He is speaking in French, and we have no, since these are all extemporaneous remarks, we have no translations for his commentary here.
Just going back on that point, I think, as Father Kevin mentioned, it's important to note that, as St. John would say in his epistle, that he who says that he does not sin is a liar. And we are all sinners, and Jesus Christ bore the pain of the sin. He died in ransom for our freedom, and that includes every single person for all of time. So to particularize any particular persons indirectly would be a mistake.
I want to go back to the meeting now.
Leading representatives of the two great monotheistic religions, it is clearly understandable that there exists between Judaism and Christianity deep theological and ideological differences. Nonetheless, we feel that the challenges that have been presented to us by contemporary society, by technology, by modernity, with all its attendant problems, are challenges that are facing both traditional Orthodox normative Judaism as well as Catholicism and the other Christian religions. Consequently, we feel that these challenges that face us are infinitely of greater weight than the differences that may possibly divide us. May this be an occasion where we can move towards a deeper mutual understanding of one another and therefore face these challenges together, hoping that with the hope of God we will indeed achieve some kind of measure of mutual respect, possibly even an understanding which leads to mutual legitimation and to peace. Thank you.
The name of the Supreme Rabbinic Court judges is Eminence Rav Drychowski. לא חשוב, משהו. בעברית? יהיה תרגום. יהיה תרגום. Rabbi will speak in Hebrew and will translate.
כן, אנחנו שמחים לארח את האורחים הנכבדים שבאו אלינו מארבע כנפות תבל. ואנחנו חושבים שהמפגש הזה בארץ הקודש יוליד בעזרת השם, שכולנו מאמינים הרי בבורא עולם, שיתוף פעולה בין עמי תבל למען צדק, ביטחון ושלום, ושבעזרת השם יתקיים בנו הפסוק שכתוב בתורה, ונתתי שלום בארץ ושכבתם ואין מחריד. יהי רצון שנזכה כולנו להתפלל לאלוקים שכולנו מאמינים בו, ושהקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא כל משאלות ליבנו לטובה. תודה רבה.
Just perhaps a short translation. The rabbi welcomed you from the four corners of the earth and mentioned and noted that we all believe in a greater God, and welcomed you in peace. And on behalf of the host of the chief rabbinate, we welcome you and hope you enjoy your stay in Jerusalem. And I think that at this point, perhaps...
In the name of the members of Chief Rabbinate Council, Chief Rabbi of Givatayim, Rabbi Glicksberg, please.
ברוכים הבאים בשם השם. אנחנו מברכים אתכם במקום הקדוש הזה, שיהיה ביקורכם לברכה ולהצלחה.
John Paul II now exiting his private conversation with the Ashkenazim and the Sephardic rabbis, the one rabbi representing the European Jews not of Spanish origin, the other representing the Sephardic representing the Spanish and Oriental Jews. Sephardic Jew, the Sephardic rabbi is the one on the right, correct, Father?
I would assume so, because the Ashkenazi, the dress of Ashkenazi, which would come from more of a European flavor.
He moved now to New Jersey.
I don't know if we'll hear remarks. It appears there might be remarks by the Pope, though I don't see any prepared text. We certainly haven't received any prepared text as of yet. And we don't know quite what to expect. Now the Ashkenazim rabbi. This is EWTN's live coverage of John Paul II in the Holy Land.
שכיבד אותנו בביקורו, אנו מגישים לו את ספר התנ"ך המלא תנ"ך ירושלים, וכתבנו לו בהקדשה, כי כל העמים ילכו איש בשם אלוהיו, ואנחנו נלך בשם אדוני אלוהינו לעולם ועד. For let all people walk everyone in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. This is a verse from the prophet Micah, chapter 4, sentence 5. מזכרת מביקורו ההיסטורי של יוחנן פאולוס השני בעיר הקודש ירושלים, בירת ישראל, ופגישתו עם הרבנים הראשיים לישראל. A souvenir from the historic visit of Pope John Paul II in the holy city of Jerusalem, capital state of Israel, and his meeting with the chief rabbis of Israel. Baruch ata bevoecha uvaruch ata betzeitecha. Blessed shall thou be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you goes out. ישראל מאיר לאו הרב הראשי לישראל, אליהו בקשי דורון, הראשון לציון, הרב הראשי לישראל.
Rabbi Lau, the Ashkenazim chief rabbi of Israel, welcoming the Pope. Let's see if we can hear any of this conversation between the Pope and the rabbi.
Years. We came to Poland from Padova. The Katzenelnbogen dynasty, the Halberstadt, and the king of Poland, who was a Jewish king of Poland, Shaul Var. Good friend. Thank you very much.
We are trying to listen into the conversation between Rabbi Lau and His Holiness John Paul II. From what I caught of it, he mentioned how his family came to Poland, underscoring his shared homeland with the Pope. The Pope now meeting a younger rabbi, and these are rabbis throughout the region. Interesting comment there in his remarks to the Pope. Rabbi Lau mentioned, welcomed the Pope to Jerusalem, the capital city of Israel. Again, underscoring certainly the contention of the Israeli government that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. This is not a viewpoint necessarily shared by the Palestinians, and the Vatican has long hoped that the city would be a shared international city, a city accessible to all people of faith. John Paul II smiling and chatting away with Rabbi Lau, the Ashkenazim rabbi, the chief rabbi of Israel. He is now on his way to meet President Weizmann, President of Israel. This is sort of the Pope in his role, exercising his role as head of state, wouldn't you say, Father?
I would think so, and it's still in that sense, he's still the pilgrim, even though he's making these meetings with the rabbis. But I think it's proper that he would go there because they're religious leaders. Yes. And I'm sure they're concerned for their faithful, for their people in Israel, as he is concerned with all of us around the world. And so we don't know what they said to each other or what they spoke of, but hopefully that the light of Christ comes to our Holy Father, and the light of Judaism comes through these men to their people, that they may continue their journey towards the God of us all.
And I suppose it is fitting, of course, too, that he visit with the rabbis before going to visit the President of Israel. It seems the appropriate order of things, going to the religious leaders before going to the secular.
What I suppose is something we don't understand. It's protocol, even though he's coming as a private pilgrim, as a private person, yet to not say hello to one's guest would be a little inappropriate, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. John Paul II now getting into the waiting car on his way to his meeting with President Weizmann, the President of the State of Israel. From here, the Pope will go on to, after the meeting with the Israeli President, he will make his way to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum. He will be met there by Prime Minister Ehud Barak They will have exchange welcomes. And then the Pope will also meet, an interesting feature of that visit, he will meet several people from his boyhood home of Wadowice in Poland. Jewish friends he had in his hometown. They've been invited to join him here. In many cases, this is the first time they have been reunited in all those years, which takes us 60 years back to the Pope's origins in Poland. There he is in the limousine waving to the assembled. You see the security all around. The Israeli government has spent some $20 million ensuring the Pope's security during this visit. As we said earlier, 18,000 soldiers and police deployed throughout the Holy City here and really at every step of the papal journey.